Okay, today we're going to go a little bit deeper with our percent proportions and look at some more complex real-world type of problems. Now, what we started off with, we're looking at these basic percent proportion word problems, such as what is 120% of 80. Whenever we did these, it was always percent over 100, and then is over of. And when you had these, you had to pull out the different parts of the sentence. What is 120% of 80? And then we just plug it in. With what is, that means we don't know our is. So up here it's a variable. 120 is our percent. Below the percent is always 100, and of is 80. So in the of spot, we're going to put 80. And then we work that out. Now, these are useful, but the problem is that in the real world, you don't get a lot of times where people just come up and say, hey, what's 120% of 80? Okay, the real world problems are much more complex. So, you're going to see something more along the lines of this. You just started working at a cook at Longhorn Steakhouse. It's responsibility to let your manager know when 75% of the steaks have been sold. If there were 200 steaks to begin with, how many have to be sold before you let your manager know? Okay? Now, before we get into this, we got to look at that. Instead of having percent over 100 equals is over of, you're going to look at this differently. And what you're going to try to pull out of the word problems is there's always a part and there's always a whole amount. Okay? In the guided notes that you have in the top left corner, fill that in. Percent over 100 equals part over whole. Okay, now let's take a look at this first problem here. Dylan wants to try to land the bottle 60% of the time. If he flips it 30 times, how many times will he have to land it? Okay, we're going to start off, there's percents in there. Whenever there's percents, you're going to think about doing a percent proportion. Our percent proportion, percent over 100 equals part over whole. So Dylan wants to try to land the bottle 60% of the time. We know our percent. So up here for the percent part, we're going to put our 60. Below the percent is always 100. Next it says if he flips it 30 times, how many times will he have to land? And when you look at the 30 times, you got to ask yourself, is that the part or is that the whole amount? We'll flip it 30 times, and you want to know how many times it landed upright? 30 is the whole amount of times you flipped it, and you want to know how many times did it land upright. Now, if you go work that out, find out. So if Bill wants to land it 6% of the time, it's going to land it's going to land upright 18 times. All right. Let's look at the next one here. Kimmy got an 87.5% on her last science test. If she got 30 questions correct, how many questions were on the test? Again, it's percents, so we're going to do our percent proportion. Percent over 100 equals part over whole. Okay? To start off, Cameron got 87.5% correct. So that's your percent, so that goes up top here. And percent always goes over. All right, the rest of the problem says if she got 35 questions correct, how many questions were on the test? So you got to ask yourself, the 35 questions that she got correct, is that just a part or is that the whole amount? Well, if that's what she got correct, that's just the part that she got correct. We're trying to find out is the whole number of questions on the test. So go ahead and solve your proportion. You do it, you find out that there are 40 total questions on the test. All right, a couple more. On his homework, Gabe only completed 16 of the 25 questions. What percent of the questions did he finish? So let's talk about percents, so we want to do a percent proportion. It said Gabe completed 16 of the 25 questions. He completed 16, that's the part that he completed out of 25 total questions. That's the whole amount. It says we don't know the percent, so that's our variable over 100. You work that out. And Gabe completed 64% of his homework. All right, one more. All right, at basketball practice, JB made 15 baskets and missed 5. What percent of her baskets did JB make? This one's a little trickier. All right, it's talking about percents, so we're going to do a percent proportion. Now, at basketball practice, JB made 15 baskets and missed 5. What percent of the baskets did she make? So we're trying to find the percent. And it said she made 15 baskets. Okay, so that's the part that she made. Now, the whole amount. If she made 15 baskets and missed 5, what's the whole amount going to be? Well, 15 made, 5 missed, altogether, that's 20 baskets. Okay? Kind of a two-step problem there to figure out. And then you work out like normal. And you find out JB made 75% of her baskets. Okay? So whenever you see percent problems, guys, you always want to think about doing the percent proportion. Percent over 100 equals part over whole. All right, what you're going to do right now, glue these into your notes, and then you can begin working on today's assignment. Let me know if you got questions.